Welcome back to the Exact Digital Podcast. Today, we're joined by Chris Perkins, president at Model B, a growth marketing agency that takes a different approach from the traditional agency model. Chris has led advertising for global brands like Jack Daniels, Jeep, and Brand USA. And at Model B, he helps businesses scale with a management consultant-driven marketing approach. Model B operates with a lean internal team and an expansive partner collective, a network of 60 plus specialized agencies and experts who bring superpowers to every project. In this episode, we will talk about how Model B open talent model challenges the traditional agency structure, why precision, efficiency, and collaboration are the future of marketing, and the importance of not just taking client requests at face value, but solving their actual problems. Also, the biggest marketing mistakes brands make and how to fix them. Chris, welcome to the show.
Kenzie, thanks so much. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you. We're super excited to hear from you. You have extensive experience, and in our pre-podcast conversation, you were such a joy to talk with. So I can't wait to share with the audience.
I feel like you just called me old in the nicest way possible. But thank you. Yes, I do have.
I mean, age is beauty, right?
Well, as your eyesight fails with age, yes, it becomes beauty.
That's a clever one. I'll definitely use that in the future. God, I'm being bad.
That was well played.
You're amazing. I love it. So Model B takes a different approach than traditional agencies. Can you break down how your open talent model works and why you chose this structure?
Yeah, sure. So I have spent, as you established early on, I'm old. I've spent a lot of time in the agency business and on the client side. So I've seen it from both sides, how marketing as kind of an infrastructure and role within organizations works. And I grew up in the Ogilvy system, ran an office overseas for Ogilvy, did training within the network, and have worked in other major holding company networks. So, the claim in the big companies is we have 60,000 employees, and then we have all these other sibling companies that are amazing and ready to be, tapped for any special service that you can imagine. We can constantly build out these great resources. And the reality is, when you call the AI enablement team, to use a more modern context, the best people are never available. So anybody you reach in that department, if you will, the first question they ask is, what's the job number? And then they say, what's your timeline? And typically it's, months or weeks, if not months, until they can actually really help you in most cases. So you either have a choice to make in that context where you say, okay, I'm going to use the people that are available, which may not have the caliber of talent and experience, or I'm going to go outside, or I'm going to make it up somehow. And in the agency world and marketing in general, there's an awful lot of I'm going to make it up somehow. And it shows, right? And we as consumers feel that in the experiences that we encounter. So, all of that kind of experience and knowledge of my background led me to the belief that, an open talent model really works. And then it really became, it validated my thinking when I read the book Open Talent, which is written by John Windsor and June Pak. John had created an agency 20 years ago called Victors and Spoils, which back then was called crowdsourcing, and was competing with some of the largest agencies in the world for major briefs from, top brands, and actually got acquired by Havas, a big holding company, but they didn't know what to do with it. It was like oil and water, right? They struggle with it. So it didn't endure within that model. But fast forward, John has taken that to a whole new level and now runs a group called Open Assembly. Again, all of that validates what we've taken into Model B. And, the way I like to talk about it is that Model B will never have more than probably 25 or 30 people. Why? Because when it really comes to the people that are the intellectual drivers of major, programs and businesses, it's 4 to maybe 8 people. And then everybody else is executing, through different tactical lanes or channels. And that's where we have and rely on the partner collective.
That's amazing. I think that it's super important to understand other people's expertise and allowing them to shine while you shine with yours, because I always say the smartest person in the room is willing to accept when they maybe don't know something and can reach out to someone that they know does know. I think that takes a true genius that actually cares about his clients and their clients and wants to improve. Not saying that if you don't do that, then you're not good at what you do. It's just using your resources well and working together with multiple different brains on something can be super lucrative and really help out your client in the end.
Yeah. Well, and our open talent model even extends into the EQ side of the equation. Again, I've worked in lots of different accounts and lots of businesses over my 30 plus years in the industry. I've actually been asked off of accounts before. Do I think I was a bad fit? Yes and no, but it doesn't really matter, right? It's about finding the right fit. And I've had team members that I've had to ask off of accounts, on my team. And the beauty of the partner collective is it allows us to have duplication of resource, but highly precise skill sets. So, if they don't like Chris, they can call Kenzie, and honestly, we've got ready to go resources that are really precise, and we call them superpowers because, frankly, it's the stuff that turns them on as much as it is about making a business out of it, right? And we limit partners to 2 or 3. So when we onboard partners into the collective, we're very clear that if you start listing 5 or 6 or 20, like a lot of agencies do, stop. Like that's just, be great at a few things, and inevitably you'll be able to do more. You'll have use cases to, springboard you to the next work. You'll stand out in a crowd. And when you look at the agency world, the one of the big challenges agencies struggle with constantly is how to position themselves. And I find that ironic because we always, we're great at doing that for clients, and yet we struggle on our own, right? The cobbler's kid's shoes syndrome. And yet there's no, in my view, there's no truly 100% purely unique positioning for an agency, in part because there are so many of them, with 33,000 or more, depending on who you ask, some say 60 to 70,000 agencies in the US alone. The notion of trying to, and I've actually done this before in team workshops within agencies and even within holding companies, like, here's the positioning lines for 100 agencies, match them without seeing their logos, match them to the agency. Can't do it, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3, right? McCann Forever had a great line that they cracked about 30 years ago called the truth well told. Super clear, very poignant. Not sure how that fits in the world today, given people looking for very precise, kind of tactical initiatives. But still, that there's something about that really is strong. But then around that, there's probably 150, if not more, agencies that have their version of the same thought. So, the notion of Model B, I'll get to that. We're a growth marketing agency. We connect consumers and brands in ways that stick. The way we actually do it, though, and the difference, what I would call our uniqueness is, and again, there's many other that do it, but our uniqueness is we think through the lens of how the business makes money, what are the forces for good and evil inside the company that affect their ability to do what they do. Like, a lot of times they're getting hurt in the huddle, right? A lot of times you look at companies and they are doing things that are self-destructive unintentionally, because they allow that silo mentality to drive them. And as marketers, do we really get permission to affect that? We don't get asked that a lot, but the degree to which we can, and interesting and compelling ways, to me, it's a lot more fun than just doing another ad.
Yeah, no, exactly. I completely agree. Completely agree. So you've worked with massive global brands and smaller companies. What key marketing principles apply to businesses at every level?
Well, the one thing that I think is the immutable truth is that you have to start with the consumer and understand the mindset of the people on the other side that we're trying to convince to do something. One of the greatest failings of marketing is that it's trying so hard to tell people what to think. And just like nobody wants that. Like nobody wants to be told what to think. This is an old version, an old analogy, but I'll use it. For decades, Ford had a tagline, "Quality is job one." And I don't know about you, but like I don't think anybody looks at Ford and thinks, no, the quality of Ford is like unmatched. So like if they don't solve the one thing they're claiming they're best and focused on, like why even say it? It just falls apart, right? And that's in a way, telling people what to think. Differently, a really great line is, General Electric for years used the line, "We bring good things to life." And the beauty of that is it was actually first christened as an internal rallying cry to the diverse companies within the GE portfolio. They made light bulbs, they made plane engines, they made refrigerators, washer dryers. Like you couldn't have a more diverse set of, product mix. And so that allowed them in a wrapper to say, we all bring good things to life. And then they realized, wait a minute, that's actually what the people on the other side want. So all of a sudden that became a universal context, and it worked for many, many years. And I would argue is probably where they should be, focused these days, because they've kind of lost their way, in my opinion. But going back to the original question, if you put the consumers, innate and kind of known needs first, you'll get them leaning in, and they'll show their cards. They'll give you all kinds of data indicating, their preferences and ways to connect, what channels they care about, et cetera. And the brands that don't do that will always have an uphill battle and frankly, never realize the full potential of marketing.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. I think that sometimes people get caught up in selling someone a product or, like you said, telling them how to feel. But in reality, people know what they feel. They're human beings. So you
Yep.
have to get into their mindset and understand, what are they thinking before they need said product or service? What would you be looking for? What would your actions be? How would you want to be approached in that situation? Would you want your problem solved, or would you want someone shoving something in your face?
Yep.
People want to think it's their idea, and me included. I'm a human being, so I totally understand where they're coming from.
Yeah. Well, and frankly, it's more fun when you do it that way. When you honor their intelligence. David Ogilvy has a great quote, something like, never do anything that you wouldn't show to your grandma. I think he said it better than that, but the principle is true, right? And if she can't understand it, you've probably missed the mark. That said, one of the greatest gifts we can give brands is helping them honor the intelligence of their consumer. The number of campaigns that make fun of people and leave, yes, it might be funny, but it's like the consumer's not dumb. Well, that's not always true, clearly, but by and large, they want to be honored in their intelligence, right? So the opportunity is there, and they'll reward you with sales and advocacy. Frankly, that's and we all talk about that in the industry of like wanting to untap that natural instinct to refer and advocate for brands, and yet we do so little typically to actually free that potential. It's a huge missed opportunity in most cases.
Absolutely. And it also feels good. It feels good to know that you're making a difference for those people's lives, or you're not adding to the noise that is the web or social media. And you know that you're doing something that is helping.
Yep.
So then good energy out, good energy in. It's just a good way to live, in my opinion.
100%.
So, out of curiosity, you mentioned the partner collective consists of 60 plus agencies. What agencies, what types of agencies does that involve? Like SEO, programmatics, social, web design?
It's a great question. So we have a really diverse range, and it's initially it was very intentional to make sure that we had coverage because our business model is reliant on leveraging those outside resources to deliver for our clients. And so any of our clients, we tap those partners directly to, help us deliver their expertise. And we craft that into what we call a success plan that has all the kind of moving parts that we recommend. And then we actually ask our partners to make it better and improve with their inherent knowledge in any given, skill set or area. But all the traditional kind of online, offline marketing, tech stack oriented solutions are in the group. But we also have tools that do, photo and moving picture AI manipulation. We've got one, a company out of Singapore that called Kitty Cat World that you upload the latest images that you've got. And let's say you did a Valentine's, a gift pack last year. You upload last year's and write a prompt and say, here's what we want this year's to be. Here's the theme, et cetera. And you can play with it different ways. It gives you 80 to 95% ready to use imagery right out of the gate. And then like any photography or imagery, you retouch it to final and use it. But the beauty is you don't have to ship packaging somewhere, hope it arrives, make sure that it's not, hurt in the delivery, then shoot it, then retouch it, pick the selects and like the whole process, right? It compacts that. We also have there's a company that does AI enabled one-on-one in-depth interviews. So one of the biggest challenges with doing qualitative interviews is getting really hard to reach experts to talk to you, right? If you're trying to talk to surgeons, you might need to do it 5 a.m., right? Because that's when they're on their way to work. And with an AI tool that feels fairly natural and is learning as it goes, each conversation gets enriched. So we have a tool that does that. Super helpful, super interesting. And then we've got partners in different parts of the world because, we for example, we've got a partner in mainland Europe. We had a CPG opportunity in Kenya, and one of their affiliates literally had an office about 2 miles from the Kenyan client that had reached out to us through our a different partner in the collective. So the beauty of it is access to talent geographically without having that overhead factor, access to talent that's precise from a skill set perspective so that you're not using a screwdriver when you need a hammer. And then, frankly, the desire to do what they do because it's their superpower, right? They're thrilled to step in and apply their, the thing that they're best at. So there's really, at this point, with 60 agencies and dozens of individual contributor experts in the collective, there are, we're constantly looking for new members to the collective, but there are very few what I would call holes from a skill set or competency perspective, or geography. So that's kind of how we've built it.
I'm having a little bit of FOMO. I want to be a part of the collective.
Let's go. Let's go.
We can do it. I'll find myself a hole. That's for sure.
There you go.
So you emphasize a management consultant mindset in marketing. Yep. How does that change the way Model B approaches strategy?
Yeah. So, just like with every partner in the collective, we challenge everybody to have superpowers. Our superpower is starting with a management consulting approach. Why? Because by understanding the forces for good and evil inside and outside the business, we're much better able to diagnose where marketing can help. We frequently get asked to do something like, do these ads. To do what? You've always done it. Well, we've always done them and we're tired of the old agency or, the person left or whatever, right? That's not a good answer. And it might be the right solution, but let's be really circumspect about that to always be challenging convention to find the most powerful, most productive approach. we don't have any client. We've never in the history of man has any agency had a client call and say, I've got all this extra money. I don't really care what you do. Just go ahead and spend it like that, and even when there was a day, in the dot-com era where there was lots of venture money that you could spend kind of without a super clear plan and didn't have to drive profit, even then, smart agencies were saying, okay, how do we set this business model on fire? How do we find the super users of consumers to really, latch onto this and carry it forward? So that management consulting approach helps us understand, in part what we do in that is we diagnose what are they currently spending time and money on. Sometimes that's marketing. Sometimes it's things that are internal, like a newsletter or an intranet site that nobody uses. Like, well, let's stop doing that. Let's not waste our time on those things. So it informs what not to do. It informs what to do because it's new, and it informs what to continue doing because it's working.
Right, exactly. Very well said. And I think that there's a big difference between agencies that are what I call order takers and will say, okay, yes, we will do this for you. And of course, you want to make sure your clients are happy and you want to do what they want. But at the same time, your job is to go in and help them manage this. What is the strategy? Where can we start? Oh, you want to place ads? How's the health of your website? When was the last time you had good SEO? Where are you targeting? What is the message? What are you trying to solve? Rather than, oh yeah, we can just put out a bunch of ads for you. People will see you. You're selling something and maybe they'll click on it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. We had a very significant industrial fluid management company reach out to us, and they literally said, we want a logo and a company name. We're going to create a new company. And we kept asking, to do what? Like, you have a really successful company. Well, there's these things that we want to move away from. Okay, but why? And where's the context of what next looks like? And where's the marketplace? And where's the buyer's mindset around what market fit looks like? And how's that align with what you're innately capable to do? And they're like, well, wait a minute. You're an ad agency, like, or design shop. Like, can't you just do a logo? Well, we can, but honestly, what if we do it in a way that doesn't deliver what you're capable of becoming? And then we challenge them on their business model. And like, do you have a business plan? Have you talked to, we found out that they were 100% ESOP, and we asked if they talked to their trustee about this new venture, and they hadn't. And the head of marketing and sales was like, well, why are you asking me? This doesn't make any sense to me. I said, well, talk to your CEO, because she'll understand that this is something that the trustee should know about, even if it's off in the future. And sure enough, that led to us doing a market analysis, writing in partner with them a business plan, then crafting a proper name and go-to-market strategy, building their web experience, their sales materials, their lead generation, and off we go. That all fits together. Now there's a reason why, instead of just tactical piles of stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, good for you. Pivot. I love it. So where do you see the biggest shift happening in marketing over the next few years? I know AI is a huge conversation, and if that's what you believe it is, we can focus on that. But is there anything else that you could see in the foreseeable future?
Well, to me, there's no doubt that AI is a major factor, and it's a super useful tool. The thing is that I refer to it as the dumbing down of already pretty dumb marketing. One person, a friend of mine, called it norming, right? So AI, it gives you, largely the same answer for everybody. So if that's what you're using, you have to press past that to get to the real magical space of what real opportunities out there. I mean, we use a ton of AI tools and solutions, but frankly, that's what gives us time and permission to really do the intellectual part and the human nature part and what are the ideas, as of now, there's no way to get out of these tools a pulse on the things that are on the rise in culture. I mean, you can ask it that, but it won't, it doesn't have the sensory context for that yet. So to me, that's really the huge opportunity, always has been, frankly, is the best marketing agencies will be finding the human nature insights that not only tap into the caveman kind of core brain, but relate to the current common culture and the conversations that are being had in the spaces where that brand and or set of brands fits. And to me, that's the fun, right? You're looking for the 1+1 = 3 context that you can prove to those consumers, we hear you, we see you, we're listening, we're paying attention. This is authentically relevant from our brand's perspective, and let's stay close. Let's do things together, and it's so fun, right? I mean, to me, that's the future. It always has been, but the game is. There's a rush to the middle with the Canva. I mean, it's the modern clip art, right? It is a useful tool, but use it to get to a place and make it better rather than I've got it done and then sending it out. I mean, that's just lazy and sloppy, but it's what a lot of people, because of cost cutting measures, are trying to do these days, and it shows.
Absolutely. I feel like leaning into AI is super important, but at the same time, if you lean too much, then you're going to lose your individuality and your uniqueness, and it's going to show. There may be down the road a time where it is tailored to the specific agency and it's more human-like. But as of right now, in my opinion, it is still very important to have your input on it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of friends. There's one of the solutions in the AI world that I find really compelling is creating a digital twin. And so, in essence, all of the thought that you've worked on over a period of time, or you and the agency, what are the core fundamentals that you care about? What are the ways you think? What are the repeatable processes that you might use? How do you train a logic engine on that? And then it helps you to jump to a faster kind of start point for picking up, new work or doing, repeatable things. Within that, I actually have one that I've started building and have trained, and I actually have areas that I want to continue to think about and to challenge myself, not only in helping our team do better, more interesting work, but business model stuff, changes in the world of marketing, what emerging things we should be thinking about. And by plugging those things in there, it can add to that conversation for me by gathering, stimulus for me to think about faster. But is it the answer? Would I look at it and say it's smarter than me? No. Hopefully it never is, although with age, maybe it will pass me up. But I do think that there's really interesting opportunities in finding that way to think on a higher level and more deeply, and frankly, these tools give us the gift of time to do that. Whereas, in the last, I don't know, especially with performance marketing and lower funnel grind, and frankly, the worst practices of lower funnel management, that's not where the inspiration, that's not where the power of real marketing exists. And I think marketers are starting to really catch on to that. So, the combination of how do you do a full funnel program and honor the intelligence of the consumer and not let AI dumb things down to the middle? Because, I mean, you can literally see when there's brands that are in a similar category that are doing the same kinds of things and using the same clip art type thinking. It's terrible.
Right. That goes along with what I was about to ask you. You're just taking away my job. You're too good at this. So many agencies are struggling to keep up with the pace of change. What do you think they're getting wrong?
Well, I think it's my view that having a huge staff with lots of departments is illogical. I mean, there's always, I don't care how good of shop you are, you're going to have peaks and valleys in growth and income. And one of the worst things that's happened in the industry forever is this hire and layoff kind of cycle. And with an open talent model or a collective, resourced, proactive, where you find these partners, paper them, have operating agreements in place and all of that, the ability to play offense is there. and it's never been there like it is today. I mean, the beauty, one of the things I love about our collective is when I talk to agencies about possibly joining, they're like, well, wait a minute, like it doesn't cost anything, and all I have to do is like do what I like to do, and you're going to call me when you need that, and I can call you when I need what you do. Okay, like what's the catch? Like, there's this kind of head scratching moment, and I'm like, okay, that's so much better than what I was doing before. But it's also different. Like, so, I think that agencies, struggle with um, talent load, the dilemma of do you work in an office or not. I think those things are intramural, and certainly it all comes down to talent. It also comes down to establishing a belief system and values. One of the things I tell people and that are looking to get in the industry early on is kiss a lot of agencies because they all are different. You got to find your prince. And some of that is like culture is like so distinctly different in agencies. And I tell them, look for like, what do they do socially together? What, like, do they have sports teams that they hang out and do things? Do they have like a training program? Do they have a intern program that they then hire from? Do they have, an alumni, or ex agency kind of work, group that they stay in touch with? Those are all clues to finding your right fit. And the agencies that don't do that kind of stuff and don't pay attention to it, I think, run the risk of being a moment in time that works until the team's really, kind of ground down and then fail. So, agencies have to kind of guard and fuel their culture and their belief system, just like any organization. And I think that that's probably, the over-reliance on staffing in-house or in-office or AI tools or things like that are kind of, some of those things that make agencies not as productive. But at the end of the day, the agencies that are best care about being clear about what they do, can prove it through enabling their whole team to deliver against that, and that they have a culture that's really healthy and supporting that belief and action system.
Yeah, would you say that that's why you choose to be transparent rather than have white labels so that people can understand that it's a collective? Oh, wow. There you go. A collective of people and their, expertise.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's the right thing to do. Like I always think about things, just as I always care intensely about like understanding consumer mindsets for the organizations we're representing. Same thing, like a partner is essential to our success. And if I were in their shoes, how would I want to be treated? Simple, easy filter, right? And why white label somebody that's great at something? Now, that's not to say when we go like to a printer, again, not to take anything away from printers, but like that is a different class of service. So we don't go, oh, meet Mossberg, they're amazing. Like it's just, that's a very kind of linear, repeatable quality standard, required, but we don't need to go meet the owner of Mossberg. Conversely, we definitely, when there's IP that is oriented around the service delivery and they have proof of having done it repeatedly, why wouldn't you celebrate that? Like to me, that's part of the superpower of the model. And so, it's a lot more, and frankly, as somebody that's worked in the business a long time, I also enjoy the diversity of people that we get to interact with and the way they think about things, bringing extra value to the delivery that we offer our clients. So everything about it makes sense to try and open that up and be transparent about it. But again, it's about vetting them to be clear that they have a superpower and can prove it and want to do it again, having paperwork in place to protect them and us and our clients equally with no favoritism, and that it's not I know a guy, right? Because that doesn't work, and that's frankly what a lot of people do, and that's part of why there's been this, can you white label, do you mind just using our email, like, because I don't want to admit that we don't do that, which is terrible.
Right, exactly. I mean, so we often partner with agencies and it's pretty half and half, some white label, some transparent. And I think that's very true what you said. There's that fear because there's been a lot of people that have, oh, I know a guy, referred them out. Then that guy, is like, oh, guess what? I do what that original agency you're working with does. And so it turns into this secrets game,
Yeah.
which I respect if that's the direction that you want to go. I appreciate that. But at the same time, I appreciate the transparency as well. I think that, what we had talked about earlier is that every agency has their own direction. And it's kind of like humans. If everybody was the same, life would be really
Right.
boring.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have a problem with people that choose to do it as long as they're clear about it and the expectations are managed up front. I do find that there's cases where it's kind of like, hey, this might be a little awkward, but like, why can't we? Work is hard enough to do well. Can't we just take that noise out of the system and like not and be like really upfront with each other and build trust? Because trust is the foundation of everything. If you can't like have that super clear trust, then your likelihood of hitting it out of the park together is diminished. It just automatically.
Right. There's 33,000 plus marketing agencies in the US alone. So this is a perfect way to stand out and work smarter, not harder.
That's right. That's right. Well, and we actually don't view any other agency as a competitor. We look at them as a potential partner, and we choose purposely to look that way because there's always ways to work together. Working against each other doesn't really help anybody. It frankly is how the industry has become so commoditized, and the and I'll now link that to a very important part of the agency model that is failing, and that is the hourly based pricing or project based pricing, where it's a rush to the bottom. Why wouldn't we value based priced? Like the impact of the work we do, if we're doing our job right, is exponential, and it should be valued that way, with reason, right? With a logic stream that's has accountability and doesn't create this self interest that like in the old days, on a commission based on media model, you were incentivized to spend money in media. Like that was like spend more money on media. But you can build value-based pricing models, and frankly, I've never encountered a circumstance where multiple agencies couldn't work together to deliver a better value if they actually thought about it, and then bringing the client along to understanding that and then actually delivering it. I mean, I worked, I'll give you one example. I worked with one client where we were the lead creative agency in this instance, and I brought the media partner, which was a big global holding company group. I brought the PR partner and the digital experience partner, the web and app partner to the table. And I said, guys, let's all go hard on this around a value proposition that here's our base fee that covers our services for up to a certain point. And then I want an increment of every case sold at a price above a price per case point that it currently is being sold. So now we're growing the client's business and sharing in their future sales together. And that group of agencies where initially they fought and were like, I don't know, I want more, I need this. We finally worked it out. And then as a group, we stood in front of the client and said, here's what we'd like to do. The client's business grew significantly in the next year. Our revenue grew significantly across the board, and it would not have happened if we hadn't been in sync. So the problem that I see in the industry oftentimes is that people compete against each other and always trying to step over the line and take other scope from other agencies. Honestly, that's so self-defeating. And so, if there are 33,000 agencies, do I want to do that with all of them? No. But the ones that can declare superpowers and actually will care about doing work that works, then you could price value-based and you can deliver impact that then gives you credentials to say to 10 other clients, Look what we did for this great brand. Don't you want to be like them? And that's the fun of it.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, your success is your client's success.
100%.
So if they are at a point where they're not ready for a certain budget, you can be like, okay, well, I know my model works. Watch
right.
this. You're going to make them more money. And then they're going to be like, well, you're the reason that this happened. So thank you. Here's more.
That's right.
And then you have that wonderful relationship. And at the end of the day, for me, and it seems like for you as well, this is about relationships.
Everything is. I mean, you can't. We're humans, right? So, and as much as we talk about technology and AI and all these other things, all our senses are analog. We jump to conclusions incredibly fast because that's how our brains and our hearts and souls work. And if we don't create an authentic context for that and be transparent about that, we diminish our own natural potential. And that's true in every relationship we have. It's true in business. And so, why wouldn't it be true in collaborating amongst agencies or marketing teams or frankly with product teams or finance, for God's sakes? I mean, I've made good friends with a lot of finance people because I want to deliver the numbers, not just the numbers, but I want to deliver great work that delivers the numbers by doing something that's good for everybody. And to me that it's amazing if you just understand the motive where everybody's coming from based on their role or skill set. You can attend to that and be cognizant of it. And again, to me, that adds up to being a much more fun way to engage. And, it's ironic, I grew up as an account person and did a lot of training of account people in different agencies. And one of the things I always told people is, one of the great gifts you can give clients is saying no through the notion of yes and.
So,
but also always understanding where they're coming from. No matter how crazy, and because we've all encountered those moments where like, did they just say that? Like, where did that come from? Like, what are they thinking? But understanding where that came from, is it a bad day? Is it a bad boss? Is it a bad quarter? What are those things? And like understanding that the conversation we're having is 2% of their day. How can we be a better part of that? How can that 2% be better and additive to the other 98? And that's relationships, right? In the end.
absolutely. I heard a great speaker say once, we as a species evolved with our instincts to put our guards up when we see something unknown. We are always jumping to conclusions, like you said. But the most recent human evolvement that is really important is empathy and trying to get into the heads of someone else and seeing where they're coming from and having that human connection, because we no longer need those fight or flight things in a normal day-to-day situation, maybe at some point, but it's not a part of our everyday life anymore. So getting to, well, how do these people move? What moves them? What are their wants and needs? Where did they come from?
Yep.
And where are they trying to go? And how are they getting there?
Yeah, we're all an amalgam of all of our experiences, and even though everything we experience is analog first and then rationalized into context, empathy is the only way to truly unlock the understanding of others. And ironically, when you do it, it also gives you a dopamine hit. So it's like, it's weird that people have, in many cases, been trained to turn that off. And it's a shame. There's also a downside too, right? If you show empathy, sometimes people try and take advantage of you. But honestly, knowing their colors and like what their game is and the way they're going to play, it's half the battle. Because if you really are trying, if you understand what you want out of any given relationship, you have to have a context and understand those kinds of things. So being empathetic without reaching past the middle too far is, I think, always a good, first step. And, It's I often tell people that some of the most powerful words in the English language are I'm sorry, please, and thank you. And those are often forgotten and not included in conversations. And I try really consciously to include them in any context. Why? Because they're additives. And it says I'm a human in a way without saying, kind of sappy stuff. Like you don't necessarily have to go to that level of drawing tears or getting misty eyed. But I do think that being a vulnerable human and recognizing that everybody's got stuff going on in their life that you never see or hear, nor should you, frankly. But understanding that and having empathy for them and what they're trying to achieve will help you achieve what you're trying to achieve. And only then can you really realize the full, potential of circumstance.
Absolutely. And I think that with empathy, I think that people in this world and society, it's shifting. People no longer want those hard hitter, big sellers. They can sniff them out a mile away. So if you actually show your authenticity, people are more likely to gravitate towards you. And I think that it helps you and it helps them. And I think that you can use that in marketing as well, rather than overproducing a story, having something simply told by someone's actual experience.
Yeah, I agree.
So if a company wants to scale its marketing, what's the first step you'd recommend? Is it the collective, or is there another direction that you'd also go in?
Well, we start by doing an ecosystem map, and that really looks at the forces for good and evil internally and externally, and then overlays what they're currently doing. And then because that gives us a clue of how they make money and where the folks on the other side that are the buyers of products or services, how they view them, you can find the best path to build from, right? So we build that into success plan, and then we are very, very committed to using data intelligence and analytics to have a clear view to tracking those things. So we manage the partners that we pull in on behalf of the clients. We assure them strategic integration. We brief them so that they're fully up to speed, and the client doesn't have to pay for that kind of onboarding of and offboarding of people. And we're ultimately accountable for their work. So we're the curator, if you will, of that collaboration. But in some instances, we actually, if there's a client that reaches out to us and says, we need X, and it's something we can't offer any value in, and we have a partner in the collective, we'll simply refer them and say, we don't see any way we can contribute value to this. So call Kenzie. She and her team can do this really, really well. Let us know how it goes. So that's kind of how we approach it. But when it comes to, clients' needs, we really focus in on what are they currently doing among that body of time and effort. What could they stop doing because it's not performing well? What could they start doing more of? And what's missing that would have an exponential effect on their collective output?
Wonderful. Absolutely. So, Chris, if there's anyone out there listening that wants to get in touch with you, what would be the best way?
LinkedIn's always a good way. I show up there as Topher Perkins. My full first name is Christopher, so the last half of Christopher is Topher. So it's you can find me there. Although I probably show up as Chris Perkins in search there too, or I'm chris.perkins@modelb.com. You can find me either way.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, Chris, this has been an incredible conversation. Your insights on rethinking the agency model using an open talent network and leading the strategy over execution really highlights why Model B is making waves in the industry. So for anyone who wants to learn more about Model B's unique approach to the growth marketing, check them out at modelb.com or connect with Chris on LinkedIn. Chris, thanks again for sharing your expertise. It's been a pleasure.
Kenzie, thanks so much. I really enjoyed it. Hope to talk again soon.
Talk again soon. And thank you guys for listening.